We are live on the air, getting ready to start in a couple of seconds, so hold tight.
And here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
your mission.
Suppose we go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream,
To be given the right of human beings to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You've certainly come to the right place.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2015. I want to thank you for joining us. Let me just jump right into the news. But before I do, we are live and we have live chat at this time. Yes, we do have live chat. YouTube is doing something different. They put out an update that automatically disables our live comments. That's what we normally did. Live comments are not working, but live chat is. So if you want to join the conversation, you can do so through our chat room, or you can go, you can call in 857-600-0518. You can always send me a tweet at the BPD show. However you want to participate, we want to hear your voice. We want to hear your thoughts. But for those of you who are looking for chat inside of YouTube, that is up and that is live, and we are ready to rock. So a lot of things on the plate today. Just got an article from Pew Research discussing the decrease in the amount of religion, the religiosity of America. Here's that piece I was looking for earlier. The religiosity of America is decreasing. America is becoming less faithful. America, the unfaithful. So I want to unpack that, discuss a couple of things in regards to that. I want to talk about President Obama and his interview today, or several interviews and a speech where he was throwing some serious shade at the Republican candidates. And I think it's appropriate that I pick it up where he left off. So I want to talk about President Obama. Then also I want to talk about this video from Quanell X. He is a Black Panther, new Black Panther Party, but this video is super viral on Facebook. I mean, I woke up this morning, it had 5 million views. By the time I got to the office, it had 9 million views. So you definitely want to, I want to play that, and I actually want to dissect it because I think it's very, it shows a lot in terms of the standard conservative playbook. Not only with regard to Black issues, race issues, Black Lives Matter, but this is just what they do on all issues. So I definitely want to unpack that. But last but not least, I want to talk about Donald Trump, his book sales, because that's essentially what his entire campaign was about. Somewhere around 11 o'clock, I got an alert to my mobile device telling me that Donald Trump will be holding a quote unquote news conference to promote his new book. That should tell you everything you need to know. And actually, let me do some things out of order. I did say I want to talk about the religiosity article first, but I think I might want to save that for a little bit later. Let me jump first to this clip from Quanell X, and interesting name. I didn't know a lot about him before today. I have heard of him. And saw some of his other material, but I think this video is definitely worth sharing. It is a bootleg video. Let me start there. It is very much a bootleg video. Someone used their cell phone to record what was being played on television, but you can hear what they're discussing. So let me play that video and we'll discuss it piece by piece.
So in South Carolina this week, a police officer lost his job.
And actually, let me set it up a little bit better. The woman that you're hearing speak, her name is Amanda Box. She is a former school teacher, and she is a Republican operative. She is a Republican spokesperson. She's very active in the Republican Party now. So this is who's speaking. So here we go.
for doing his job by subduing an unruly student in a classroom. Now, the spin is that she had her phone out, she didn't want to put her phone away, whatever. I can guarantee you, as a teacher, this wasn't the first time this has happened, second, third, fourth. I guarantee it. This is no innocent little lamb. And when you have one student, just one, in a classroom, disrupting the class, making life hell for the teacher and the other students, it is impossible for other students to learn. Now, I do agree. The cop went too far, but I don't think he should have lost his job over it. I think it's high time we start addressing the root causes of all this, the disrespect of teachers, this Black Lives Matter movement, this perpetual chip on your shoulder against everybody that's not like yourself. It's got to stop. We've got to address the culture.
First of all, let me say that the cop was justified in being terminated, but they should go further. I think the district attorney's office should indict him for assaulting that child. Miss Box, nobody supports a disruptive student in a classroom because it stops other kids from learning. But what I do have a problem with is men should never deal and handle a woman like the way that cop handled that little girl. To turn that desk over the way he did, grab her around her neck, then grab that child and throw her across the room. That is unbecoming of a man with decent character and conduct. That's unbecoming of the conduct of a police officer. They should have got a school counselor, maybe a therapist on campus with a school counselor and a mental health officer to come to the school and deal with that child. We don't know what was going on with that kid, but no kid should be disruptive in the learning environment. Now, for you to say that we need to deal with the culture of Black kids in school, let's deal with the culture of these crazy fanatic white boys who go in schools with guns and shoot and kill everybody. Let me finish. Hold on, wait a minute. Columbine, killing the kids at the elementary school, the shootings in other cities across America have all been crazy little white boys shooting up innocent people. So let's study that culture.
We have the Black culture, unfortunately, which has been run, the Black community has been run by the Democrats for the last 60 years and has destroyed the Black family, destroyed initiative, destroyed self-worth. You have kids out there shooting each other. It's not just white kids. Black kids shoot each other.
But wait a minute. You said address the Black culture.
No, address the Black culture.
Finish, ma'am.
The perpetual chip on your shoulder. Blame
Show some manners. I didn't interrupt you. Show some respect. Don't tell me a damn thing about the Black culture and kids in school when it's white boys that go in school and murder all kind of innocent people.
I'll tell you what. When you go into the
inner city, study these fanatic white boys.
When you go into the inner city and start teaching there, you let me know, and then you can have something to say about it.
Ma'am, I went to inner city schools.
I taught there.
And guess what? At the end of the day, there's wolves in sheep clothing every day teaching
Let me
Black
tell you something. How dare you say that to me?
It's the truth when it comes to you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was woo. Good morning. Good morning. If you weren't awake before that, you are awake now. That was Quanell X versus Amanda Box. Now, there's so many things about the actual the quote unquote debate. It wasn't really a debate. It was an argument, right? But that's what everybody wants to see. Everyone wants to see a rant. Everyone wants to see an argument. That's just the way of our politics today. But it actually was it's worth dissecting a little bit. But before I even do that, this is not the first time these two have run into each other. Amanda Box, her only claim to fame is the fact that she had to resign because of racist statements she made against Muslims on a YouTube channel, a YouTube podcast. It got big enough so that she had to resign. Quanell X was a part of that. He made an uproar about some of the comments. He is from the Nation of Islam. Well, he's Muslim. He's no longer a part of the Nation of Islam. I'll tell you a little bit about his background in a minute. But anyway, she made racist comments about Muslims, and she ended up having to resign from her teaching position. As a result of Quanell X's participation in her having to resign, she sued. She filed a lawsuit against Quanell X, and the federal judge who was oversaw the suit dismissed it as frivolous. So they have a little background. Quanell X is not without his own baggage. If you look him up, you'll see that he's made comments. I want you to catch this. He's made comments so controversial that the Nation of Islam put him out. Okay, so Quanell X, I love him in this clip, but if you dig into his profile, his biography, his bio, because I didn't know a lot about him, he says some things that were so controversial that even Farrakhan didn't want to be associated with it. But inside of this clip, inside of the context of this clip, I think it's so telling about the mindset of conservatives. Yes, conservatives, because she revealed herself in her opening statement. She completely, first of all, once you say that this police officer went too far, that should be the end of the conversation for most people. That should be the end of the conversation once you say it has gone too far. But for her, that was not enough. For her, she has to say it went too far, but we need to address the culture. We need to address the chip on the shoulder. So she starts immediately to deflect from the real issue. And that is conservatism 101. They never want to confront any of the pertinent issues of our day, anything that is relevant to our lives, anything, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a black issue. It can be an abortion rights issue, or the right to choose. It could be LGBTQ rights. There's always a deflection. The first thing that you need to spot whenever you're debating with a conservative is that they will deflect. And that's the very first thing she did. She tried to placate him and say, yeah, the police officer was wrong, but we need to look at this. We need to look at this. We need to look at the culture, and we need to look at Black Lives Matter. Now, the second thing, Black Lives Matter has absolutely nothing to do with what happened in South Carolina. Nothing whatsoever. But this goes right lockstep with the conservative agenda, because this is important. This is what I want. The most important thing that I might say tonight in this conversation, at least, Black Lives Matter is a progressive movement. They may not want to align with the Democratic Party. I get that. But everything about Black Lives Matter is progressive. Because of that, conservatives have sunk their teeth into opposing Black Lives Matter at all costs. As a result of that, they want to bring down Black Lives Matter at every opportunity they get, because they cannot allow a progressive movement to catch fire and to catch wind and to take off. And so she is just an extension of the number one talking point in Black issues, is that Black Lives Matter is somehow, the talking point now is a terrorist organization, or Black Lives Matter is somehow a racist organization because they're calling out racism. So this is conservatism 101, right? The first thing they do is deflect. The next thing they do is they try to pull down the entire progressive movement. And in this case, they're trying to pull it down by virtue of Black Lives Matter. Let me reiterate something. Whether or not Black Lives Matter wants to identify with the Democratic Party, everything about them is progressive. That means that conservatives have to oppose it by any means necessary. They cannot allow anything that Black Lives Matter stands for. So, because they see this as a Black issue in South Carolina, they figure Black Lives Matter is going to align with it. They cannot bring themselves to come down on the side of this young girl, because it will give voice, it would give wind, it would give credence to what Black Lives Matter has been saying all along. So they're willing to which is their next step, right? I'm getting ahead of myself. They're willing to victimize the victim. They're willing to blame the victim, which is exactly what they do in every single case. And you see all of this. It's like 1, 2, 3, step after step after step. She does the conservative technique, the conservative agenda, which is first of all, is to deflect from the actual conversation. Because above all else, let's not talk about the real issue. Let's not talk about the fact that the police officer hurt this little girl over something that was pretty much nothing, right? That's number one. Number two, let's make sure that we crucify everyone that's involved with this or could remotely be attached to this. Anyone progressive, let's pull it down. And then number three, let's just make sure that no progress is ever made talking about the issues that need to be talked about. So she does all this. Now, I bring that up because, one, it needs to be brought out. But number two, I love what Quanell X does here. This is why it's not a real debate. But I love what he did here, because what do you do when somebody, and maybe I'm just giving you debate techniques here, because I just dissected it and I think it was worth dissecting. So there you go. Some free debate techniques. What do you do when somebody starts a debate with you and then they go off chasing a red herring? A red herring that you're very likely to chase because you want to defend or you want to fight off against that accusation. Her accusation here is that we need to look at the Black culture. Right. So all of a sudden, this is no longer a conversation about the abuse that this white police officer did, the damage and the trauma, the assault that he committed on this little girl, regardless of whatever color she was. I don't care if she was pink, right? Whatever color it was, this police officer, for all intents and purposes, assaulted her. But forget about that. That's not what we need to talk about in the minds of a conservative. What we need to talk about is how we need to address Black culture. Now, in my mind, the first thing I want to say is, I would want to defend Black culture, but I love what Quanell X does here. He said, one red herring deserves another. If you're going to chase that, then here, you come and chase this. And you can see her squirm in her desk. I was going to play it again and give you a play-by-play, but you could watch it for yourself. She squirms in her seat when he calls out something that is an offshoot, a direct offshoot of the conversation, which is, if we're going to talk about culture and classroom, let's talk about the culture of all of these boys. He said, crazy white boys who go around shooting up the entire classroom. Brilliant. I have to give him an applause there. I have to applaud him again. Because what can she say at that point? I absolutely love this clip not because they got to any type of philosophical truth. There was, really, when you debate in all of your what's the phrase? What is the phrase? In all of your efforts, essentially, let truth be in all your goals, let truth be your goal. In all of your aims, let truth be your goal. That's what we look for in a debate. This was not a debate. This was an argument. This was just a rant from two different people, but it exposed clearly how you deal with the deflections that conservatives will bring on every single issue. On every single issue, they do not want to have a legitimate, valid conversation about the issues. Because if you have a conversation about the issues demand that something be done. The issues demand that something be done about a system that can allow this police officer to throw this child around. So we don't ever want to have a conversation about the issues. We want to deflect and go off and talk about something that's going to distract you from having a conversation about the issues. Well, if that's what you want to do, then we can return fire with fire. And that's exactly what Quanell X did. This video is so viral. I've never seen one go quite this fast. Right now, I think it's at about 12 million views in one day. And it was worth every bit of my bandwidth to download it. Anyway, all right, so I want you to join the conversation, 857-600-0518. While I'm doing videos, let me pull up one more video, and I'm going to shift gears. I want to talk about President Obama and the Republican debate. Let me switch screens over here. Let me just start here. Here's President Obama at a press conference today, or at a speech today, discussing the Republican candidates and this idea that President Obama is weak. Here he is.
Have you noticed that every one of these candidates say, Obama's weak. He's Putin's kicking sand in his face. When I talk to Putin, he's going to straighten out. Just looking at him, he's going to be. And then it turns out they can't handle a bunch of CNBC moderators at a
debate. That's enough. All right, I don't even have to play anymore. I didn't get a chance to talk about this last night, but I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. Since the debate. CNBC is the home team for trickle-down economics. Before the debate even began, they had 2 hours of pre-debate debates, or not even debates, but pre-debate massaging each other's backs about how great the economic system is, and all we need to do is cut taxes, and all we need to do is this, all we need to do is stimulate the economy and stimulate growth by getting rid of regulation. That's all you had for the first 2 hours before the debate even started. CNBC is the home team for conservatives. But you would have thought that they went into the lion's den as if they went to MSNBC. Don't let the NBC portion fool you. CNBC is an entirely different beast dedicated to nothing but capitalism as we have it right now. It is dedicated to Wall Street. It is the reporting arm of Wall Street. You don't get more Republican friendly than CNBC. And yet and still, you had all of these grown men and one grown woman on stage crying about the questions that they were being asked. Here's the other thing. The type of questions that they were being asked is a result of the type of foolishness that they represent. You will get, if you have clowns on stage, you will get clownish questions. And if your base demands that type of foolishness, that is the type of foolishness you would get. Don't be fooled. Do not be fooled. These networks are playing to the audience. They know exactly who they're talking to. These questions have been ran over by producer after producer by producer. They know that this is the type of stuff that the conservative base wants. So don't blame CNBC for giving you what you represent and giving you what your base wants. But because they actually asked some legitimate questions in there as well, right? They asked some legitimate questions about Marco Rubio's finances and why it's a mess. Or they asked legitimate questions about whether or not you feel this person has the moral standing to be. Because let's be real, right? The very next conversation, the very next day is going to be about Chris Christie came out and said that he didn't believe that President Obama or he questioned President Obama's faith. So if in one sentence you're going to question the faith and the moral character of the sitting president, why can we not ask that question about the candidates on stage? Why is that not a valid question when it's something that you're presenting in the audience and to the press on a regular basis? All of that to say and reiterate this simple fact: CNBC is the home team. There was no difficult questions. There were no gotcha moments. There were no questions that were that should have been a surprise. Matter of fact, it reminded me of the Fox News debate. But there's two things that's happening in this conversation, and President Obama, you know, he got a couple of good laughs out of it, but I want to dig into what's really happening in this conversation. You know, they believed that they had the power to dictate to the networks how the debates are really going to be. Some of that happened today. They've sent a letter to the network saying that they wanted these terms, these conditions. One of the letters, actually, there's two letters that was sent. One letter that was sent, there was a draft. In the draft letter, they actually tried to tell the network what type of graphics that they could use, what type of imagery they could use. One, they've lost their mind. I have to start there. They've lost their mind, and they are feeling their own sense of power because of this incessant narrative of media bias that permeates the conservative ideology, which is oxymoronic, because the conservative ideology really drives a lot of the national media. Let's start there. There really are not many outlets for a genuine progressive ideology. Even MSNBC leans to the right. You have 3 hours every single morning with Morning Joe, a conservative, a former GOP congressman who has a right-leaning perspective. On this network, the single network that is ostensibly progressive, it starts off with 3 hours of conservative pandering. Matter of fact, I think this morning they had the Koch brothers on there, or one of the Koch brothers on there. So no network, what mainstream network actually carries a progressive or liberal ideology. Not a one. Now, what network carries pure conservative ideologies? Well, one, the network that they were on for the debate, CNBC. CNBC is dedicated to neoliberal trickle-down economics, period, right? So in that regard, they were on their home base, on their home turf. Fox News, Rush Limbaugh is on the media, on radio, relentlessly, incessantly, 24 hours a day, all across the nation. We are inundated with conservative media, but it is the victimization complex. It is the persecution complex that is so easily played into when you deal with people, religious people, because everyone believes that they are a victim. All of the Republicans believe that they are fighting some type of end time war, like they're in the tribulation, they're in the book of Revelation, and they're living in a police state where the gay, liberal, perverted president, Muslim, Kenyan born president has taken their guns, has taken over the media, and he's directed all of the moderators to ask these ridiculous questions. Because they know, these candidates know that they have an audience that is that deranged, all they ever have to do when they don't like a question is say, this is an example of liberal bias. That's all they have to do. And so every question that they're not prepared to answer because they didn't do their homework, or that they don't want to answer because it will reveal the truth about them, or the ones that they're not willing to lie about, like Ben Carson. Somebody sent me an email telling me how about my rant on Ben Carson was ridiculous because he didn't really lie about something. Ben Carson lied, right? On the stage, he lied. So the things that they are not prepared to talk about, the things they don't want to reveal about themselves, are the things that they are not willing to lie about on record. All they have to do is cry liberal bias. And their audience is going to eat it up because it plays right into this persecution complex that conservatives have, which is so manipulative because they are the ones doing the persecution. They are the ones in power. They are the media. They are the system. They are the oppressor, yet they're crying about being oppressed. And they're crying about the president. They have all the guns in the world, and they're crying about the president taking their guns. This is the twisted ideology. This is the twisted mindset. And so what President Obama does, which I have to learn how to do, right? Not on my show, but in my own personal debates. President Obama is not going to reveal that. He's just going to make them look like a fool, right? He's going to say, okay, you want to play the victimization card. You want to play the persecution complex. You want to do that because fine. Then let me tell you what, you're not going to be able to handle China. You're not going to be able to handle Russia. If you're so afraid of CNBC and their questions, how can you ever imagine dealing with Putin? I guess maybe the moral of the story tonight is sometimes it's not the best idea to address the real issue, the real underlying issue, because they don't want to address the real underlying issue. Sometimes the best idea is to turnabout is fair play. That's what it is. Sometimes you don't always have to get to the nitty gritty and the minutia. I'll do that with you guys on the show. But I like the fact that President Obama didn't even bother going into anything that I just discussed. Even though I properly diagnosed it, President Obama just decided to turn their foolishness on themselves. And this is what he said.
I mean, let me tell you, if you can't handle those guys, then I don't think the Chinese and the Russians are going to be too worried about you.
We'll be back after this. What's going on, everyone? This is Benjamin Dixon, and I wanted to take a minute to tell you how you can support the Benjamin Dixon Show. One thing I've learned over the last few months is that it is impossible for us to do this without you. Every time you click on a link, every time you read an article, every time you share a podcast or share a YouTube video, you are absolutely supporting our show. And without you, it's simply impossible. But there's another way you can support us. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com and register for our blog. You will be directly contributing to the success of the Benjamin Dixon Show by registering for our blog. You will help us increase our audience and increase our reach. Remember, every click counts, every subscribe counts, and every share counts. So go over to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com, click on the Contact Us tab, and register for our blog today. There is a radical, violent revolution taking place in America right now, figuratively speaking, where we are ripping from the status quo the very notion that they have the right to define the status quo. We are ripping it from them. We are telling them that they no longer get to decide what America is going to look like. And that is terrifying for a lot of people. That is downright terrifying when someone comes into your home only to help you to understand that your home is not yours in isolation, that we share this home equally, and that we have the right to be comfortable in this home, just as much right as you have to be comfortable, so that a white Christian straight man, the comfort that he feels in America will be experienced by the gay Black woman and every other intersection that has been erased. That, my friends, that is a revolution if I have ever seen one. That is something, that is the next stage of evolution in America.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show.
He's obviously he's a radio show host or something like that.
You're damn right I am. Hey. All right, folks. Welcome back. I want to play something real quick. I've been meaning to. A couple things, housekeeping things. I'm going to get you some new clips in between on my break. I'm trying to. I did away with commercials because business wise, it was like, yeah, I might as well do away with them. It's better just to have a longer show. Caller, sorry to have you on hold for so long. The 954 number, feel free to call back and I'll get you in the conversation. I want to play a clip, just a shout out to Davin. Not Davin on YouTube. Davin is a 5-year-old who listens to my show on a regular basis. I believe he's 5. If I got the age wrong, please forgive me. And I just lost my screen here. Okay, I don't know how to bring it back, but okay. I lost the screen, but I'll figure it out. So Davin is a 5-year-old who listens to the Benjamin Dixon Show, and he sent this in.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Okay, that was super loud. Let me turn it down and play it one more time.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Davin, thanks so much for listening to the show. So now I'm trying to do my best, ladies and gentlemen, not to cuss as much, because now I know I have 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds listening. So I'm going to do even better on not cussing at all. Caller, what is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Benjamin, how you doing? This is Patrick calling from Miramar, Florida again.
Patrick, how are you? Glad to have you again. What's on your mind, man?
I'm good, man. I just want to comment about your first segment you talked about when you had that woman. I forgot the individual from the former Nation of Islam individual talking.
Yeah, Quanell X and Amanda Box.
I think we get caught up in the whole banter and the theatrics and entertainment aspect of it, but it really is a broader point here. And this is how we talk about the 30 years of economic propaganda from the right, but there's also been 30 years of social propaganda that even when it's blatantly obvious that the power structure, that the individuals are wrong, they're still going to defend it at all costs.
Absolutely.
And they are afraid of anything that is remotely progressive, even if it's against their own interests. I'm looking at how Matt Bevin just won in Kentucky. And he basically is right on the platform. I'm going to repeal the expansion of Medicare that our current governor did.
Right.
And the vast majority of the people who are on that Medicare, I assume, if it's Kentucky, are middle-aged to older white people.
Exactly.
And they're going to defend the status quo. It reminds me of Carter G. Woodson's quote, I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to paraphrase it, about if you can control man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. Even if you, he will go out the back door, even if there isn't a back door, he will carve one out for his own benefit. His education makes it necessary.
Absolutely.
But even when there's clearly no defending the status quo, they're going to find a way to twist and turn, which ultimately goes against our own best interest because of just these 30 years of social propaganda. And that's my comment.
Absolutely, man. No, you're spot on. And that's something, you know, that's something that there's a book called, it's an old book called What's the Matter in Kansas? And actually, I think it's right here on the floor. I think I was looking at it yesterday or something and left it on the floor. But and it deals with that exact thing, that for actually 35, almost going on 40 years now, the conservative ideology, the conservative establishment has been able to keep an entire swath of voters voting against their own best economic, social, political, economic interests. And they've been able to do so on the back of, for lack of a better word right now, bigotry. There's different shades to it, right? It's not all just pure racism, but there's different shades to this bigotry. There's fear, right? There's emotionalism. There's this fear of things changing, and they're able to tap into that and get people to vote against their best interests on a regular basis. And with that election result in Kentucky, you're absolutely right, right? He's gonna repeal the expansion of Medicare. That is going to have a direct effect on the lives of the people who voted for him. Just like the people who were voting, who were hoping that the Supreme Court would rule against the tax mandate in Obamacare, that would have led to estimated 10,000 people dying every year. So here you have people so angry with something that's going to do them good that they're willing to, they don't even realize it, but they're signing their own death certificate by opposing this. Right? Some of the very people who would have lost their insurance are some of the same people who are out there protesting against it, and some of the same people that would have been one of that 10,000 people who would have died because they would no longer have access to insurance. So what you've said is absolutely spot on. They are so committed to this conservative propaganda. They're not. Here's the thing. They are not committed to the nuts and bolts of conservatism, because a lot of them may not even know the nuts and bolts of conservatism. They're committed to this 40 years of propaganda. They don't ever, and this is what I dealt with yesterday, they don't ever want to look in the mirror and have to confess and admit to themselves that everything that I've been saying for the last 30 years, everything that I've been voting for, everything that they've been promising me has been against my own best interest. And a lot of it has just been completely untrue. So they're what we say in poker, they're pot committed. They are so pot committed to the status quo that they would do things that will ultimately damage their lives just so that they never have to pull the veil back and ever confess that they have been believing and they've been sold a bill of goods. So I agree with you 100%, Patrick. I don't think that I could have said it any better than what you said. They're just so committed that it's to their own detriment. Yeah. So and actually that was really a pause. I was going to let you say something else and then close it out. Anything else you want to say, Patrick?
No, and just one thing. And I don't have an answer to this. I'm really asking for my general education. Where a lady in the video, when she's arguing with him, this is a clear assault on a minor woman, on a defenseless child. And I'm trying to think if it's like, and maybe, I mean, you're not a psychologist, you can't think into the conservative psyche, but what is it that, even to something so blatantly obvious, and I get the economic propaganda, but what is she, at this point, what is she defending? I assume it's authoritarian, it's power structure. That's my assumption. Is that indeed what she's defending?
Let's see. I would say she is actually, I don't think she even cares, that particular person, right? I think she represents a class, a demographic that does care, But Amanda Box is a conservative operative at this point. She's trying to get to the higher echelons of conservatism so she can get her spot on the real Fox News, right? So she and herself, I don't think she even cares. She's not really defending anything other than the Republican talking points, which is why she didn't even realize she was going dot by dot by dot. Number 1, number 2, step 3, step 4 out of the conservative playbook. And it was so blatantly, patently obvious. But to your bigger question, she does represent a large group of people who want to defend the law and order structure of America, so long as that law and order is at their beckoning call, so long as that law and order, like Clive and Bundy, does not intrude on them.
That's a good point.
They want the Gestapo. They just want to control the Gestapo. But what they don't realize is that once you unleash that, the police state will spill over into their neighborhoods. But so long as they feel comfortable that the police state is going to serve them, they're perfectly fine with the abuse, because they consider that law and order. And what do every single time? They have to make African Americans, they have to make poor people, minorities, they have to make everyone else out to be barbarians that the police state is necessary for, which kind of takes me back to Hillary Clinton and a clip that I will find and play. It's in my Twitter feed, where she actually played into that exact paradigm, stoking the fears of super criminality in these young people, super barbarians, that we need to bring down the iron fist of law and order. So it's an exact demographic that she's playing to. I just don't think Amanda Box actually cares. I think she's just trying to get a Fox News appointment. Hey, man, thanks so much for your call. The line is open for anyone else that wants to join the conversation, 857-600-0518. Patrick brought up something that's really, really good, and I have to now go to my Twitter feed and pull up this video, a video of Hillary Clinton. I'm way off track. I will circle back and get back to my main things. But Hillary Clinton, back in the 90s, in this entire period of law and order, where they were trying to passing the war on crime, that entire phase, Hillary Clinton, actually, there's a clip circulating. Give me a second and I can find it. It's like number 12 in my playlist here. But she actually said some things that were beyond disturbing, and that is not even just questionable, but something that she has to answer for. And it is a soundbite. I will start the conversation there. It is a soundbite, but what she said is so revealing. And as you could tell, I'm filibustering until I get it, because I wasn't going to discuss that tonight. But I think what Patrick said brings us directly to that. It brings us to this fear. It's the fear and the willingness to use the premise, the illusion of law and order, when that law and order actually becomes authoritarian. But people are okay. People are okay with the law being abusive, so long as it's abusive to the people that they are afraid of, or people that they don't agree with, or people that they're disgusted with. People are okay with that. And my entire premise is, I think something that I heard in Patrick's voice, I don't think he expressly said it, or at least it crossed my mind when he was discussing it, is if this police officer would do this to a young girl of whatever race, let's say she black, white, whatever race, if he would do this to a young girl, he'll do this to a grown woman. So by her defending this, she is setting herself up for failure, because ultimately it will come back and bite her or someone of her same demographic in the ass. Sorry, Devin. I was going to do better. All right, folks, I can't find that clip, but it was off topic. I'll tweet it out. It's on my page, but it's a clip of Hillary Clinton basically playing to that same type of fear and that same type of animus as an excuse, as a reason to justify their authoritarian, their draconian changes in the policing structure. All right, so we dealt with Quanell X. We dealt with the conservative, the Republican debate, and President Obama's comment. Let me deal with Donald Trump and his book sales really quickly. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is the religiosity in America and its decline. And I think it's very telling, and we'll talk about it. So I got an alert on my phone at 11 o'clock at work, and it said that Donald Trump is going to hold a news conference. Okay, I'm like, okay, so what? What's the big deal? The final part of that sentence was a news conference to promote his book, Make America Great Again, or something in the title. What's the title of his book? Of whatever the title is, I don't care. But the subtitle is Make America Great Again. I don't know if people realize that a very large part of running for president is simply about the money. You're not investing. Donald Trump has been going around saying that he's investing his own personal money. Donald Trump is not investing his own personal money. I think I read somewhere where he hasn't spent over $400,000 of his own personal money. He is accomplishing everything he's accomplishing. He did raise like $3 million, right? Let's set that aside. He's accomplishing everything he's accomplishing because of all of this free media. He is on the television every single hour of every single day because he knows how to play the media. And so he's getting all of this free media. And what does he do? He drops a new book. He drops a new mixtape in the middle of being the, you know, back and forth between the #1 spot and the #2 spot. He drops a book out, and it's carried across the nation. C-SPAN does the entire hour on it. Every network dropped what they were doing with a breaking news, Donald Trump press conference. You know, just everyone carried it, and it's him selling his book, him talking about his book. And of course, his book is about politics, so he gets a chance to take a jab at Marco Rubio, take a jab at Jeb Bush and everyone else. And he doesn't go too hard on Ben Carson, but he goes after everyone. Not only Donald Trump, but Ben Carson. He just dropped a book last month called A More Perfect Union, or you know, whatever the title is. Donald Trump's title actually was pretty good. I want to find his title. When I do, I'll read it to you because it was actually kind of catchy. But that's the thing. Donald Trump knows exactly what he is doing. He is not the buffoon that he portrays himself to be. Not at all. He knows who else. I want you to think about this again. He has not spent that $3 million that he just raised last quarter. Everything that he accomplished was before he raised that $3 million. He has only spent about $300,000 of his own personal money. Who else could accomplish this type of media frenzy for about $500,000? Let's give or take a few. $500,000. Donald Trump has pimped the entire system, and the media can't back away from him. He's shot up to the #1 spot because he knows exactly how to play the Republican base, and he knows how to play the media outlets to get millions upon millions upon millions of free media. And then he turns around and sells a book on us. This has always been about raising his net worth. The same is absolutely true for Ben Carson. It is about raising his net. Ben Carson doesn't have a coherent sentence policy statement in his brain ever. Ben Carson has proven that you don't have to be naturally smart to be a neurosurgeon, because he's a complete bumbling idiot on anything political, just anything common sense. He did not even see himself as running for president, but somewhere along the line, he realized that he could capitalize. I want to go on a tangent, but let me finish that thought. He could capitalize on all of this frenzy. He knew he couldn't do it in the Democratic Party. He knew he couldn't stand out in the Democratic Party. There are so many qualified, talented, amazing Black candidates in the Democratic Party. He was just another number. Where do you go if you want to stand out and you're a Black person? Well, be a Black conservative, right? There's plenty of opportunity. I guarantee you, if I cut my show off right now and I deleted every single video and I did a purge of my entire YouTube internet existence, and then you see me in a year and I'm talking all the conservative talking points, I guarantee you I would be a sensation. I would have 100,000 followers. I would be all over Fox News because I'm a black person who can go on Fox News and be a black conservative and say all the things that they want to say, but they can't say. Guarantee you, because where can a black person stand out? In the Republican Party, because they have like 5 other black people, right? It's easy to stand out when there's only 10 of them. But anyway, Ben Carson knew that there was a financial opportunity in being a Republican. He capitalized on it, and now he's dropped the book too. So this is all about, this is not about their core belief in deep down on the inside that they want to make America better. This is all about their core belief that they want to make their financial status better. That's it. That's it. You know, tangentially, what I was going to say earlier was that there's something I don't know what that Donald Trump, I don't know Donald Trump so well, but there is something that happens when a person grows up poor. I can attest to this. When you grow up poor, you kind of have this grimy side of you when it comes to money. You see this come out in the Marco Rubio, right? The Marco Rubios of the world. You see it come out in Ben Carson. You see it come out in the Clintons. You see a lot of people who are money hungry because they didn't have money growing up. I think it probably parallels the money hungriness of people who are rich, because you just never have enough. So you have people who never had enough who end up behaving the same way as people who have it all but never have enough. And so that's why you see people like Donald Trump, who's running for president. He has no policy. He has no ideology. He's going with the wind because he knows that he can convert this entire nation into a very profitable reality TV show. And Ben Carson knows that if he made $30,000 for a speech before this, he can get $150,000 a speech after this. And in the meantime, let's drop a book. That is exactly the mindset. Just like at least Marco Rubio was straight up about it at the debate. And when he said, and I actually liked it, I really liked this moment. He was a likable guy at this moment when they asked him about his book sales. And he said, yeah, and matter of fact, you can get it on paperback right now. And he smiled about it because, you know, he wants that money. Everybody wants that money. They're not above it. All right. The last but not least, guys, and we're going to get out of here. The U.S. public is becoming less religious. This is research coming out of the Pew Research Center. They released something very similar to this over the summer that's essentially saying the same thing, that America as a whole is becoming less religious. They don't attempt to do a lot of explaining as to why. They just really give you the data and discuss some key factors, some key metrics rather. The religiously affiliated people in 2007 in America was 83.1%. In 2014, it dropped 6.6 points, and it's at 76.5%. Matter of fact, let me just do this for you guys. Share my screen with you so you can see it for yourself, and we'll make that bigger. And of course, you know, I have some commentary because I do religion. So the religiously affiliated in 2007, we've dropped since 2007 from 83.1% to 76.5%. Unaffiliated has increased to 22.8%. So it's a 6-point change. So everyone, I mean, I guess that makes sense. The people who were affiliated are no longer affiliated. How important is religion in your life? There's a 3% drop in the last 7 years in terms of not important at all. That's a 5.3 increase, 5.3 percentage point increase. How often do you pray? Negative 2.7%. Fewer people are praying. More people are never praying. And how often do you attend religious services? That's dropped off by 3.8%. And a few times a year or less is 4.8%. All of those numbers, and then you can have the article. I'll drop it in the, actually, this is good. I'm going to drop it in the chat room, and you guys can go over there and consume it for yourself. Boom, boom. There you go. If you guys are listening via Spreaker, I definitely want you to always listen via Spreaker, but you can join our conversation by coming to YouTube and joining the chat. And then we'll go through some of the comments before I get out of here. But what was I saying? America's becoming less religious. There are a lot of reasons why. And I know a lot of my listeners are like, here, that's a good thing. Hey, America's less religious. You know, it's good and it's bad. I think it's good and it's bad. I think it's good in the sense that there's a stranglehold that political religious people have over the nation that I think most people would agree, Christian, reasonable Christian, and everyone else, that the goal for the reasonable among us is not to destroy Christianity, but so that Christianity can get out of other people's lives who don't want to live according to Christianity, right? You know, when the criticism that I bring of Christianity on a regular basis is never to destroy Christianity, because I'm a Christian and I'm going to, you know, be a Christian the rest of my life, right? I have no need to change my religion. I have no need to depart from my faith, because my faith is big enough. But I bring criticism to the religious community because I see the impact that it's having on the lives of people who don't want to live it, right? People should be able to live in America without having a fire-breathing preacher breathe down their neck and watch their every step, right? And criticize their every decision, and to make them feel horrible about the person that they are, the person that they were born, the people that they love, right? People just want to live. How difficult is that? Well, apparently it's difficult for a lot of religious people to mind their business. That's number one. So a lot of people who grew up in church, there are a lot of us who are saying, you know, if you can't get this right, I don't want to be affiliated with you. There are a lot. I did a survey on former Christians explaining why they left and became atheists. And I haven't put the research out because I'm still poring over the research as I have time. But you would be amazed at the stories of people who were either hurt by a religious leader, or they saw a religious leader or a religious organization hurt someone that was gay, or someone who was that was Muslim, or someone who was transgender. They just saw so many people be hurt that they decided to leave. So you have those people who grew up in church who are now like, this political religion that you're shoving down our throats is not what we want to be affiliated with. And I believe that that is a big driver in the decline of religion in America. And that's why the article, I'm working on an article that's discussing that Christians are the biggest threat to Christianity. And I know, you know, some people are like, here, hey, you know, Christianity is going away, you know. Not if I can help it, because the reason I think it's a bad thing is because there's a fundamental difference between how people who were marginalized and grew up in religion view the entire world. And this is what I want to leave you with. Those of us who grew up in minority communities, our entire religious experience has always been about freedom, justice, liberation, setting us free from the oppression of Pharaoh, right? That's the entire context through which, that's the entire lens through which we see God. People like me, I don't stop there just because it fits my needs. And I think this is what drives me crazy about so many Christians, is that, you know, you use your religion to benefit you, and then you use your religion to hurt somebody else. That's the disconnect that drives me insane, because if you read your text and your text is giving you insight as to how you can get your literal freedom from the oppression, freedom from tyranny, freedom from being marginalized, but then you turn around and use that same text to oppress someone else. That is enough to make people walk away. But I got off on a tangent. This is what I'm trying to say, is that there's an entire breed of people out there who read the Bible and they see it as a tool of freedom, and they see it as a tool of liberation. And they are some of the most fierce fighters for civil rights, and not just African-American civil rights, but civil rights for every group, civil rights for people who are religious, and civil rights for people who are not religious, the freedom to exist, whether you are religious or not. In other words, it's like there are those of us whose faith will mobilize us to defend the ability of someone else to not even believe. Maybe we're few, far, and in between. You know, maybe the good that comes out of it isn't worth the bad that comes out of it. We could have that debate. You can leave your conversation. But for me, it's like everything that I know, everything that motivates me and drives me is something that I learned from my faith, right? This something that I grew up with. And it's because I grew up seeing this entire religiosity experience in America as one of trying to get freedom and trying to achieve justice and trying to bring equality. And what's amazing is that the number one opponents to that equality, that freedom, and that justice are people who are on the opposite side of the same book that I read. And they're not interested in bringing freedom, justice, and equality across the board. They're looking to bring that for people they agree with. And because of those competing forces, not because of the competing forces, but because of that opposing force has been so strong in American political ideology over the last 40, 50, 60 years, America as a whole has become, they've pushed back against religion, and people are becoming less and less and less religious. People are not becoming less and less religious, mind you, because of secular humanism. People are becoming less and less religious because of the way religion has been shoved down their throats. And we have no one else to blame but ourselves. It's 10 o'clock. Let me read a couple of comments before I get out of here. Let's see what's going on here in the comment section. I just got a tweet. Oh goodness, what did I do? Okay, here we go. Let me read some comments and then we're going to get out of here. Let's see. Look how it's a little easier. Todd Hamlin said Ted Cruz's gotcha question. That the Ted Cruz's gotcha question asked him, what are you going to do about the debt limit? I didn't quite read that right because I don't know how it's phrased, but I agree, Todd. That was the question that sent him off on a hissy fit about the media being biased, right? What are you going to do about the debt limit? Well, that's a real problem that the president and the Speaker of the House, and that even if he's not elected, he's a senator, he should have a position on that. But because he didn't have a position on that, he decided to blame the media. The Quantum Samurai said brainwashing through narratives that replaces independent thought and hedges confirmation bias. First chapter of the Conservative Media Handbook. Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. Norman Hotfield said the U.S. shifted so far right politically that Republicans have no other choice but to be unreasonable. Otherwise, they would have to be moderate Democrats. I agree with you 100% there. And he also said, I think that it's one of the downfalls for having just a two-party system. There isn't anybody else to stretch the political spectrum back. Absolutely. I agree. That's kind of, unfortunately, that's the nature of our political system. Duverger's law pretty much predicts that we will always have a two-party system because of the structure of our system, and that forces extremism. And once you have nowhere else to go, then it's just, you become absurd. And the Republicans are clearly victims of that. Sad that the only one speaking since has only 16 viewers. Miss Gracie, I appreciate it. You know what? It's all good. It's all good. No calls for drug tests, like I'm reading here. It also teaches us to be happy. Religion is a form of control and oppression. It's that simple. Anything organized is. Well, I would disagree with that, Politicat, only from the sense of it's your perspective, right? It can be. Let me start here. What did you say? You said, I'm gonna read it one more time. You said religion, and I missed it. I forgot where I scrolled. but religion is a form of control and oppression. That is, it's that simple. Anything organized is. I would agree that anything organized can become oppressive. I think even progressivism, right? I'm an evangelist for progressivism. Progressivism can become oppressive. Our freedom can become oppressive. See chapter 2 in my book, Oppressive Freedom. Anything can become oppressive. Religion has a history of oppression. The problem for me, and the reason that I have no need to ever walk away from religion, is because I don't look at the structured system, right? I don't look at the Catholic Church. I don't look at the religious organizations. I look, and we'll debate about this another time. I look at the text and I read between the text, and I see so many things that actually opens your mind, right? And so it's like, for some of us, it opens our minds, but unfortunately for too many of us, it closes our minds, right? And they become more bigoted than they are any good. So there's this competition. And so, my job as a person whose faith has opened their mind, part of my job is to bring relentless criticism to religious circles so that they understand that they're doing more damage to themselves. They're doing more damage to society, to humanity, by having this closed, bigoted view of the world and trying to shove it down somebody else's throat, when that is neither Christian nor constitutional. It goes against the Bible. It goes against the Constitution. So the best thing that they could do is to follow their own rules and work out their own salvation, lest they become a castaway. Because there are two stories tonight that I didn't deal with because of how graphic they were. There is a GOP consultant who was a religious leader who has a lawsuit filed against them because of some of the atrocious things he did to young boys. I didn't want to discuss it, but when you're so concerned, and I'm tipping over my can here, it's time for me to go because these lights are hot. But when you're so concerned with controlling somebody else's life, you end up screwing up your own life. When you're so obsessed with someone else's sexual predilections and desires, you end up not even understanding your own, and you begin to do things that are destructive. And we see that time and time and time and time and time and time and time again in religion. And I know all of you guys are yelling at me saying, that's why we need to get rid of it. But like I said, there's no need for me to do that. My job is something else, and my job is to speak truth to power. I'm tired. This is a good place for me to sign off. You guys have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow.
And until that moment comes, when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment.
And we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
We need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today to say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.